Today we're going to talk about how you can create an association on Ancestry.com using that cluster research that we're always talking about, where you can associate your fan club with your ancestors. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Connie Knox. I am a lifelong genealogist here to help you go further, faster, and factually with your family research. Now, the reason this came about was because I had sent an email to my friends there at Ancestry, and I said, look, I've got this idea that I think would be really beneficial to a lot of people, and it has to do with those friends, associates, and neighbors, the fan club, attaching them to our ancestors, because it's really important as part of our research when we're looking at the fan club to be able to actually tie them in and learn more about them within the community, and maybe even use the algorithms of Ancestry to research the fan club in combination with our ancestors. So I sent this email out, and I got this reply back from Krista Cowan. And if you're not familiar with Krista Cowan, she is with Ancestry, and I'm sure you know who she is. But she has her own YouTube channel. Well, Ancestry does, and she's a regular on there. And she had referenced another video that she had done where she is doing a similar kind of thing. She said in her reply that there is no current way to attach a non-family member to a family member in the way that I was describing, but she had a trick that she shared with me, and I'm going to share that with you because it's really kind of beneficial, I think, to be able to attach those friends, associates, and neighbors. You know, that's also known as cluster genealogy, to be able to attach those people to our family ancestors, because we want to be able to really get an understanding of the entire community, not just our family. Because what happened to me and what started this whole thing was this guy in my ancestors. This gentleman right here that you're looking at is Christopher Madsen, is my second great grandfather, and I kept running across this name in the records. I'm like, who is this guy? His name was Chris Tiegner, and I'm like, who is this guy that keeps popping up in these records? I found him in one record, I found him in another record, and so I started thinking, you know, there's got to be a way to add this up. There's got to be a way to take and create a profile for this non-family member, attach these records that I'm finding him in to this guy, this fan club member, let's call him. So he is a fan, let's say, of my ancestor, and associate and attach, link to Christopher Madsen, my ancestor, because it's important to have an understanding as we keep tripping across these names and going, gosh, that name sounds familiar. I know I've seen that before. So if we could start keeping score of how these guys are connected, it might help us later on to understand other records down the road. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. But don't forget, I'm also going to put a playlist up here of some of the other ancestry tricks and tips that I've got for you. But don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notified each time I upload a video, because I don't want you to miss any of these. So we're going to jump over to that right now. Okay, well, first of all, we're looking at my second great-grandfather, Christopher Madsen. And when I was doing research for Christopher Madsen, I kept running across this guy's name, Chris Tiegner. I kept running into him in multiple records. And so I started doing some just searching in my own file on, I keep a file for every ancestor. So Christopher here has his own file on my computer. Well, I was searching through this folder for Christopher Madsen, and I was just searching the name Tiegner because I wanted to see how many times it popped up, and I was surprised at how many times it popped up in transcriptions, in newspaper articles, and in a variety of places. And so I wanted to be able to associate this guy that is no relation to my family with Christopher Madsen here, because he clearly was an important person in my great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather's life. So let me just show you something real quick. Okay, so these are the research notes that I keep for Christopher Madsen, and this is a constant ongoing thing. And just as a side note, I keep everything in chronological order, and I put all my sources in the footnotes. Okay, so if I go up here to search and I just search Tigner to see how many times he pops up in my own research notes. These are notes I have typed. And there are 8 pages of notes here, but watch this. So I type Tigner, and bingo, he shows up in multiple places in the early 1900s. So I want to go back and associate Tigner. He basically shows up as a friend. He shows up as a fellow Danishman in the Brotherhood of Danish Brothers and Sisters. He shows up having bought and sold land from Chris Madsen, my ancestor. So long story short is we want to associate Chris M. Tigner to my ancestry file. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so we're back over here on Christopher Madsen's profile. And how I'm going to do this, I'm going to explain how I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do it. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pretend that Chris Tigner is a brother, and I'm going to associate him as a brother of Chris Madsen. We know he's not a brother, but we're going to put him in there just so we can get him into the database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add a brother, and I'm going to say his name is Chris M. Tigner, and he's deceased and he's male. And honestly, I have no idea how old he is. He's probably about the same age as Christopher Madsen, but I'm just going to hit save. All right, that's step 1. Now we've got him in there as a brother, although he's not. Here he is, right here. Okay, so now Chris Tigner is listed as a brother. Now we're going to go into Chris Tigner's profile, and we're going to come up here and we're going to say edit, and edit the relationship. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the biological parents, which would have been the same as Christopher Madsen, my ancestor. We're going to remove the biological parents, which basically breaks apart the brotherhood. They're no longer brothers in the Ancestry software. There is no association here. That's step 2. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go look at the tree. So now you see Chris Tigner has nobody here, no family, no nothing. Okay, and so now I'm going to go back to my tree, and I'm going to go back to Christopher Madsen, who's right here. I'm going to open his profile, and I'm going to open up the siblings, and you can see that Chris Tigner is no longer in this list of siblings. Okay, so now we know he's broken apart. But wait a minute. How do we know where Chris is in the tree view or anywhere? The only way to do that is to come back to the search and come up here and type Tigner, and there he is. He's listed in the tree search. So the reason I'm showing you this is because Chris Tigner is now floating out here by himself. He is not attached to anybody. Okay? So you want to confirm that before you move on. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my tree, and I can do that just by hitting the home tree or home button. And so now I'm back to where I was. Here's Christopher Madsen, my ancestor. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to open up his profile. This is the next step. And when I open up his profile, up here in the search bar, I can highlight that exact path to Christopher Madsen. I'm going to Control C to copy, or you could right click, I guess, and hit copy this way. See, Control C for those of us who are on Windows. All right, so we're going to copy that. Now I'm going to go back to the tree, and I'm going to do that search again, and I'm going to look for Tigner. Okay, and there he is. And now we're going to open up Chris Tigner's profile, And we're going to add a web link. This is the trick that Krista Cowan taught me. Okay, so here we go. We're going to add a web link. And we're going to the web address. We're going to Control V to paste. Or you can right click and hit paste. Control V for those of us on Windows. I believe it's Command V on Mac. The link name. This is a link to Christopher Madsen. Christopher Madsen. I'm going to hit add. So now there's a link to Christopher Madsen. Now the only downside to this trick is you have to do it in both directions. So while we're in Chris Tiegner's view, we have a view, we can now click through to Christopher Madsen, right? And so now what I need to do is go, I'm going to copy this address, Control C. This is the web link for Chris M. Tiegner. I got to click on the web address here. Takes me over to Christopher Madsen, and notice actually that it opened up in a new tab. Now I'm going to scroll to the bottom. This is in the center column. Now I've got a lot of stuff going on here with Christopher Madsen. I'm going to add a web link, and I'm going to enter that web address, and I'm going to say Chris M. Tiegner. You know, I could even put a note here. Since there's not a note field, I could do something else by saying, you know, in many of Chris Madsen's records. Or I could have called him a friend or something. So here, now it says Chris M. Tiegner in many of Chris Madsen's records. And now when I click on this, it's going to take, it actually opened up another tab. It's going to take me over to Chris Tiegner. So now what does that do? That now gives me an association between the two. They're not brothers, but I had to link them in as brothers to make that work. And so now I have, scroll back to the top, I have Chris Madsen on one tab. I'm going to go close out this other tab just not to confuse you. I have Chris Madsen on one tab, and I have Chris Tiegner on another tab. These guys were clearly friends. They were in many newspaper articles together. I found them in land real estate deals together. They were in several clubs together in the town of Laramie, Wyoming. So there's a couple other things that you could do to make that a little bit faster too. You can go straight here to the top and add a web link from here. Also, what you might want to do in order to add notes is to come up and view your notes. Now, in my case, I have a ton of notes in here. So I could come in here and make a comment about Chris Tiegner being part of the fan club. You could also come over here and add a tag. You could add a custom tag and say, you can call it the fan club, let's say. All right, so see web links below and then create. And that tells me that I have my own custom tree tag, right? My tree tags. I have now added a fan club. I've got a fan club tree tag there, and I'm going to close this out. Also keep in mind, you could put notes in here or you could put comments in here. The comments are public, remember. So if we write a comment in there, all right, so now I've got a little comment in there in case anybody else is looking. I could go in there also and make a comment about all the different records I found him in. He was also a pallbearer in one of the funerals with Chris Madsen. So clearly they had a mutual friend who had passed away, and they both were attending that funeral together. So there's comments and notes. There's a lot of ways to make notes of it. I kind of like this though. I think I'm going to stick with the fan club marker there, because what does that tell me? That tells me to scroll to the bottom and take a look at the web links. Maybe I even change that to say something like, let's see, can I edit that? Oh, I can edit that. All right. See web links. So I say see web links, I hit save, and now I've got a great big one here that's popped out at me, and I can use that as part of the fan club, just to kind of like, hey, heads up, there's a fan club member here. Okay, well, that's the trick. I hope you enjoyed that. If so, give me a thumbs up. Love to hear from you. Are you using web links? If so, leave a comment in the sections below. And, if you have any other tricks that you want to share with me, to share with the rest of the Genealogy TV audience, let me know. Put them in the comment sections below. I'll explore. I'd love to see how other people are using Ancestry. I personally love it. And so that way we can bring more tricks to everybody. And so I hope you enjoyed that. So don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notified each time I upload a video. You don't want to miss any of this. Don't forget that Genealogy TV has a website at genealogytv.org, a Facebook page at facebook.com/genealogytv, and the newsletter, of course. Links for all of that are in the show notes below. So, all right, it's time for you to go find your ancestors. So until next time, keep on climbing your family tree.